Wait, are you are you gonna count me in? Whatever. I'm just gonna go for it. Welcome to the Queen's Lead podcast. I'm your host, Amy Singleton, and as a child of the 80s, I'd love to say queens rule, but they don't. Queens lead. Being a queen means you are worthy to be a leader of people. The guests on our show do exactly that. They are leading the way in their businesses, families, and communities. And they're taking their rightful place in the spotlight, leading and inspiring the developing queens in all of us. Welcome to the Queen's Lead podcast.
Now here's your host, Amy Singleton, the queen of realness, leading conversations about business, life, and the real shit you want to know.
Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Queen's Lead podcast. I'm your host, Amy Singleton, and we are continuing this conversation about women in business. And I am excited to have today as my guest, Jeanette Lowry. Jeanette is coming to us from Washington. And she has been a master of brand partnerships and social selling for many, many years. Her ultimate mission is to be the catalyst that helps women design a life that they love. And I don't know about you, but I want to love my life. She wants to help you design a life where you can thrive personally, professionally, and financially. And she really uses a great kind of set of guidelines and rules on how she does that, her signature training. So welcome, Jeanette. Thanks for joining me.
That was a mouthful, huh, Amy?
Yeah. I always hate to just read the thing. So I try to pull out a few high points there.
Thanks for the invite. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what you do today, and then we'll kind of work backwards into kind of how that came to be.
Okay. So I am a 64-year young Nana of two granddaughters. Ivy's 3.5 and Piper is 9 months. So they're just the love of my life. They live about 10 minutes from Nana. So my heart.
Yeah.
And I have two adult kids, 36 and 29, Brian and Lexi, who moved out years ago after college. One was married. And I got bored after being in retirement for 20 years after my first company I launched in 1990. So hence came out of retirement during COVID and launched a new platform.
Yeah. So you had been retired for 20 years when COVID came.
Yes.
And what caused you to come out of total bored? I mean, you were already retired, but are you saying once the kids were gone, then you got bored?
Bored. You know, honestly.
Were you like that mom that was always at the school, always at the game, always super involved? Yeah. Okay.
Running the auctions, the whole bit. Yeah. In the private schools. Yes.
Yeah.
And thank the Lord I could, because I was not expecting a divorce after 16 years of marriage. So I had been building my business since 1990. I call myself an accidental entrepreneur because I had a 2-year-old, a girlfriend came to me and said, Jeanette, try these products. Your skin's going to love them. And I said, where do you buy them? She said, well, you cannot go to Nordstrom's and buy them. You have to get them through direct marketing. And so one thing led to another. Honestly, significant change. People noticed, people asked. I told them where they could get their products. And one thing led to another. 7 years later, I've got a network that's consuming a lot of product around the globe and an income that sustained me for 20 years. So I did not have to go to work post-divorce. And so I really got that deep in my soul, just this burning when COVID hit. And some of the neighbor moms in particular around me have younger kids in school. And they were just in a huge depression on not knowing what their kids were learning because they were telecommuting and seeing what the kids were being taught. And so their whole beef was, I need to get home. I need to be home. And it just hit me. It's like, Jeanette, you've got 30 plus years of knowledge and wisdom. Get your butt out of retirement and help these women. So that's what I did. I spent a couple of years working with coaches so I could become a student of this technological age we live in today.
Yeah, for
I had to
sure.
upgrade my skills for sure.
Well, I mean, you mentioned actually in your bio, you mentioned that you use Robert Kawasaki's philosophy on business ownership, and he has been well known to say, that multi-level networking and network marketing companies provide some of the best training out there on sales, on relationship, on on product promotion, and all of those kind of
Personal
things. But what's
development.
Oh, yeah, personal
Personal
development, I
development,
mean,
huge. Yeah.
yeah, huge, just
And
having that
recurring
awareness,
income.
self.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but, I think any woman who's made it to her mid-40s, like myself, just about any
Mhm.
one of us out there can say that we have sold something. I've sold the lipstick, I've sold the Tupperware,
Yes.
I've sold the makeup,
Yep.
I've sold the Scentsy smell good things, whatever.
Yep.
But, two of the things that were really missing from that for me were always, a product I really, really believed in, that I knew worked really
Mhm.
well, that was gonna be
Mhm.
great for everyone.
Yep.
Which is really forefront for
Part
me, for sure.
Yes, me
And
too.
then just
Yep.
the knowledge of the tenacity and the personal development that it was really gonna take to
Mhm.
own a business, to
Mhm.
be even just to be a direct salesperson. If you're coming out of, just being a stay-at-home mom or being in the 9 to 5, you've never owned a business, you have no
Mhm.
idea what the
Exactly.
absolute hell is ahead of you. I mean, people make it sound so easy, Jeanette, like, "Oh, it's just gonna be this super," as as John Maxwell says, and I quote a lot,
I love
just
him.
because I've had the pleasure of being around him so much, he always says,
Mhm.
"Everything worth doing is uphill." It's all uphill. Like, nothing
It's all
that's
uphill.
worth a
Yeah.
dang comes easily. So pick
Right.
your hard and move forward on it, right? But
Perfectly
you have
well said.
you have found a
Yes.
way though with, not just your experience in network marketing, but you've developed a system to actually help these mostly women train themselves to actually be able to sustain
Yeah.
themselves in a business this way. Can you talk more about how that came to be?
So, one thing that I've always been is a lifetime learner. I love learning. And,
Mhm.
you know, I can say I was an A plus student and 4.0 through college, 1B. But you know what? You asked me 30 minutes later what the test was about. I couldn't tell you. I was
Yeah,
master at memorization, but
gotcha.
conceptually and, really having it, seep into my brain, forget it. So
Yeah,
after college, I decided I was going to change that. So I became a lifelong learner, always into health and nutrition because my formative years from 9 years old onward were spent in the gym. I was a gymnast and
mm,
competed through college. And then I taught almost 20 years of fitness classes, not for the money, but because it got me out of the house with one child and then eventually two.
yeah,
So I've always been into learning, accelerating, fitness, physical, nutrition, the whole thing. So
yeah,
one thing I've learned in network marketing is your income will never outgrow your personal growth, your
yeah,
personal development, your digging deep into the, recesses of your mind, the paradigms that, you were basically indoctrinated with as a child based on the
yes, for
family you
sure.
grew up with. So
Yeah,
we go into all of that, and I just really had to step back and have a quiet time at the beach for 3 or 4 days and just brain just running, writing, just stream of conscious basically. And I came out with, where did I start? What were the gaps? What were the platforms that elevated quicker than those that didn't? And it really comes down to starting with mental and physical health to gain
yeah,
confidence in yourself.
wow,
So that's where
wow.
pivot starts. Yeah.
That's amazing. So you started this back in 2020 again. And how did
I
you
took two
decide?
years. I took 2 years with coaches. I
Uh-huh.
hired several coaches,
Okay.
help
Mhm.
develop the, infrastructure, the technology part, all that automation and stuff I hate.
Yeah.
But uh, then did some beta, um, mini camps, boot camps, what have you. And
Mhm.
now am unveiling the full meal deal to women. And it's very exciting. It's it's my happy place because I you can see transformation in front of your eyes as they can see their transformation in front of their eyes. So
Yeah.
from a changing physically, changing mentally, and it, doesn't happen just by writing down affirmations 10 times a day. It
Yeah.
really takes some rewiring of the brain, creating new
Mhm.
patterns and habits, and really stepping outside of that box that thought you were stuck in for life.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned being a gymnast as a young girl. One of
Mhm.
the questions I love to ask my guests is tell me about little girl Jeanette. So I'd love to hear her what you were like and kind of how your truest self has come back to you at this time in your success.
Oh, it is a full circle, truly. I was one of 6 kids born to young parents. My mom was 18, my dad was 19 when they got married, and their first baby was born within that year.
Yeah.
And he's my older brother, Stephen, who was born with some mental challenges. So he was really the focus of the family. I
Mhm.
came a year and a month later. My sister after me came a year and a day.
Oh
And
my
then
word.
my other sister came a year and 2 months, and then there was a 2-year break, brother, and another year break, sister. So there's 6
Wow.
kids in my family, and it was always chaos. My dad launched his own business. He was an entrepreneur, which gave me the eyeballs to see what
Mm.
leveraged income and entrepreneurship was all about. So I
Yeah.
saw our lifestyle change as his business grew. He
Mm.
was 100% there at the office the first 7, 8 years,
Yeah.
but then he had time because the premiums were being paid and he could take us snowmobiling and water skiing for weekends, things like that. So
Yeah.
I I got the bug for recurring income by age 9.
Oh wow. Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
That's
Yep.
incredible. So many people, so many of us don't really have an example of that entrepreneurship,
Right.
and many who did have the example run the other direction because they see how
Because they
hard
were
it
in
is.
traditional solopreneurship, totally different from
Yeah.
leveraged entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
Because it's
for
just
sure.
one of you, you know,
Mhm.
time for money, which is the whole rat race, gerbil
Right.
on the wheel, 9 to
Yeah.
5, working, exchanging your time for money. And
Yeah.
solopreneurs do the same thing, but they put more hours in actually per day.
Yeah, for
So
sure. What kind of
leverage is
business
what
did your dad have? You said
he
policies
had
and
it, life insurance, and then he branched into medical and
Mhm.
association insurances for, yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
talk to me
So
about how you chose the product that you would go with after, obviously the one in the '90s was probably not still around. Did you choose a
the
new product line?
in the 90s, I had to give up my income from my first company because I was still being
Mhm.
paid when I took a deep dive into this other company, Isogenics, which is who I'm with. And a girlfriend of mine who we had made millions with the first business. And I respect her completely. She owned her own hair studio and had her own skincare line. So she's an entrepreneur, but we both built our business together with New Skin, which was the
Mm,
first company.
mhm.
So when she called me for 5 years telling me I need to get my butt out of retirement because this is a big business, I finally tried the product. And, you know, eating clean my whole life, I still had inflammation because I was not detoxed. So
Yeah.
within 3 days, I could lift my arm, my right arm, my rotator cuff, which
Wow.
was just a nightmare for 20 years. I could lift it over my
Wow.
head
Wow.
without pain. I was lifting Christmas boxes, handing them to my husband to put up in the drafts in the garage. And he's like,
Yeah.
Jeanette, you don't hurt? And that's what hit me. It was like,
You're like,
oh
wait a
my
minute, I
gosh.
don't.
Yes.
Wow.
So of course I'm just a science geek, so I do research and all that jazz, but completely clean line of products, which is always what I look for anyway. And
Yeah.
science backed, proven, and they're 23 years in the market. So
Yeah.
been
Pretty
around.
good
Yeah.
backing behind them.
Yep.
So when
Yep.
you're in your program, are you only accepting people who are working with isogenics, or are you open to coaching anyone? How does that work?
So it can be coaching anyone through the steps of business, the steps of mental and physical change, but I can't
Yeah.
guarantee the money. You know,
Yeah.
they'll have to bring their own business, but
Yeah.
you know, there's so much strategy in it and so much resource information that can
Mhm.
grow any type of business. Um,
Yeah.
I would always have newcomers try the product for 30 days.
Mhm.
Then they can make their own decision whether or
Yeah.
not this is a personal growth journey for you or you want to make some side income. You can eat for free, or if you want to replace your income.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Choices.
So
Yep.
tell me about the program. Like if someone is interested in getting hooked up with you, how does that work? What's that journey look like?
So I do master classes and I'm launching new campaigns right now, actually. So uh, Facebook kicked me off though. So right now I'm trying to get back on. Somebody hijacked my Instagram account. It's just craziness. But I do LinkedIn and YouTube. So I'm in places. I do lives and master classes that don't cost anything where people can join and take a 1, 2, 3 hour master class. And, you know, we just kind of, what I do is I like to stair step people into, you know, one angle of, you know, the beginning of the program, say
Mhm.
well-being. Let's tap into paradigms, or let's tap into true goal setting with, you know, an end timeline in place, or let's
Yeah.
step through, you know, intermittent fasting and detoxing and metabolism boosting and stress reduction. So
Mhm.
there's different angles that I bring into master classes to introduce pivot.
Yeah, that's awesome. What Tell me, whenever someone comes to you working, you've mentioned a lot about mindset. What is kind of like the first hurdle that you find most people have to get over in that mindset piece?
Paradigms, you know, we need to peel that onion back and find out. We have to become our 7-year-old self and know
Mm,
that by age 7 most of our paradigms are pretty much ingrained into our brain. Whether or
mm,
not they're true, our brain can't tell the difference, does not know if
mm,
it's a truth or a lie. So because we're around these habits and these beliefs and these, you know, established traditions in our family, we just kind of go on an unconscious level in a subconscious way, playing them out as we
mm,
start adulting.
Can you
And,
give me an
you know,
example of a paradigm that
yes,
that somebody might need to shake?
yeah. So there's two big ones that show up for women. One is their weight, and the other is money. So here's a great money paradigm. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, I grew up in a house and, you know, mom worked hard, dad worked hard, but we never had money. They always said money doesn't grow on trees, or there's never enough month or money at the end of the month.
Mhm.
Paradigms like that sets you up for, oh my gosh, making money is hard. I'll never make the kind of money that person makes because nobody in my family has ever made 10,000
Yeah,
a month. So
yeah.
that kind of a limiting belief and box needs to be unpeeled. And then
Mhm.
once you recognize it, because the words come up, it's like this little girl sitting on your shoulder, slap her
Yeah,
when she
yeah,
starts, you know,
for
piping off
sure.
like, can't afford this, or come
Mhm.
on. who are you to think that you're going to be, a 7-figure income earner? Things like
Yeah.
that. You have to
Mhm.
first recognize the patterns, then you have to interrupt those patterns, and then you have to replace those patterns. And
Mm.
most people think that replacing a pattern is just like 30 days and it's a new habit. But
Yeah.
actually, 30 days is really when the brain becomes aware that you are doing something different,
Mm.
being something different, saying something different. But it takes about 90 days for that pattern to become ingrained as a new paradigm.
Oh, wow.
So there's
So
little
you have
there's
to
little assignments along the way.
so you recognize when you're getting caught in the negative thought pattern and
Yep.
then
And
interrupt it, you
you have to
say.
have a methodology for interrupting it, whether it's a rubber band on your wrist, something that's physical, snapping your fingers, saying cancel, cancel. It has to be something that's intrusive, an intrusive interruption to get that
Okay.
brain stopped, to get that
Wow.
patterning stopped. And then
Mhm.
shifting into what, we've created for you, your best way to create the new paradigm. And,
Wow.
there's lots of paradigms that we hold true. Um,
Mhm.
Religion could be a paradigm for sure. And,
Yeah.
as kids grow up, they start challenging those paradigms. They challenge their parents. But it's funny because a lot of kids, young adults, don't challenge the money paradigm or the weight paradigm. Oh,
Yeah.
it's just our genes. Every woman in our family has, a pear-shaped body. That's just the way it is. I'll
Yeah.
never be able to, be tall and thin or whatever. So
Yeah.
we challenge certain paradigms, but unfortunately, we don't challenge the paradigms that really keep us stuck.
Which are for us, our weight and our money.
For women, for the most part.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, and that leads to the confidence, confidence in self. I mean, it
Mm.
all ties together. Confidence in self. Am I good enough? You
Yeah.
know, and you can say you're not good enough because you don't have a perfect body, or I'm not good enough because I've never made that kind of money before. So,
Yeah.
we shame ourselves based on not allowing ourselves to step outside of that box and create new paradigms.
Mhm. So how do you I've heard a lot of people give advice on kinda how to go back to that seven-year-old self, but how do you recommend approaching that?
Well, one thing that I know for sure is you've got to have quiet space. You have to have an uh, a very forgiving, a very open, no chaos around you, no
Mhm.
interruptions. You just need to have a place where you can do some brain dumping,
Mhm.
and thinking, and just not making any sense of anything that you're writing down, but just
Mhm.
go back to the earliest memory you have and start rewriting childhood, because
Mm.
there will be very big clues within your story. It may be 14, 15, 25 pages long by the time you get done going through those memorable times that you absolutely still remember for a reason. There's a reason those particular memories stick out.
Mm. Good and bad?
And yes, good and bad. It could be
Yeah.
you were praised, it could be you're shamed. But really,
Mhm.
when you start thinking through, especially the memories that you still hold on to, there's a reason behind it. And that
Mm.
subconscious is not going to let go of it until you confront it. So,
Yeah. Wow.
yep.
So write it out, meditate on it, and start replacing the negative thoughts that come from that with interrupted patterns.
Well, and I say start in bite-sized pieces. So, um, there's a lead magnet I gave you, a freebie called Paradigms, and it will
Mhm.
take you through some of this. So, like, write down your top 2 to 4, you
Okay.
know, things that really the biggies that
Yeah.
you have got to get a handle on.
Mhm.
Otherwise, nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
How you speak to yourself, might be one of them. And
Mhm.
it's about you know, interrupting that pattern, snapping the rubber band, stomping the feet, clapping the hands, cancel,
Yeah,
cancel, which is mine. I say
yeah.
it out loud.
I
So
like that. Cancel, cancel.
that,
That's great.
yep, interruption. And even if I'm around people, I'll still say cancel, cancel, just under my breath, but it
Yeah.
comes out. It's,
Yeah. It's become your new, like, that's it. But
it's
I
in the
mean, I hear
universe
you
now.
saying, even once you learn this, I hear you saying you're still doing this all these years later. So it's something that you have to
Oh,
continually work
absolutely.
on, right? It's not like you just
It is.
arrive and you're better one day, right?
No way. No way. That's why I say lifetime learning is so
Mhm.
important because
Yeah.
here's what I say, you're green and growing or you're ripe and rotting.
Mhm.
So when you
Yeah.
when you think you've arrived, you're bored again, you're slumbering for death. That's why a
Mhm.
lot of retirees, they did some studies in the auto industry in Michigan.
Mm.
And when these
Mhm.
top CEOs of major, car companies got
Yeah.
into their retirement years, most of them didn't live past 2 to 3 years because
Wow.
they didn't have
Really?
anything outside of their focus their whole life. They
Mhm.
didn't have,
Yeah.
hobbies or extracurricular things that they did. So they were dead within a few years. So,
Wow. Wow. Well, that really comes back down to your ultimate mission, which bringing, women to design a life that they actually love, one that they want to
yes,
be a participant in, right? So tell us,
instead of
tell us,
told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and how much you're worth,
yeah, instead
which
of
is
this
salaries.
hustle and this hustle culture that we've all kind of come to embrace
Mhm.
weirdly, it's for a
Yes,
lot of us,
yes.
what are those things that we're missing that help create that whole life?
Well, first of all, is peeling back the onion, really getting in touch with childhood paradigms and rewriting that programming.
Yeah.
And then now that you're in a different box, you don't have the four walls around you or the ceiling. Now you can create and reinvent your future that you want to step into. And that
Yeah.
doesn't happen with just staying stagnant at your growth where you are. It means investing in yourself, investing in, books, podcasts, things that are going to grow your mind, your body, your
Mhm.
spirit. It means health needs to be a priority because
Yeah.
most women who have, they've lost their health through stages of life. They're stressed
Mhm.
to the max. The cortisol is running their fight and flight hormone, and it's
Yeah.
keeping the fat on the belly, which is what
Mhm.
cortisol does, keeps that belly fat until you can, you know, the three pillars I talk about is the stress hormone, that reduction. So you've got to take mommy time or me time. And
Mhm.
women aren't used to it. I mean, we've always put everybody else above us. We're the
Yeah.
last on that totem pole. And
Yeah.
until and unless we carve out that time for ourselves, we are
Mhm.
not going to be good for anybody,
Yeah.
you
For
know,
sure.
in the family. My mom used to say, if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. And that's the truth. If you're raising kids, that is the truth. You set the tone of the day when you
Mhm.
get the kids up. So
Yeah.
that's a huge responsibility. And it's sad because a lot of women just kind of move through that thinking there's nothing else. This is the way it's always going to be. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be that way. But you
Right.
have to be able to be brave enough to look in the mirror and say, okay, my life is crap. I'm sick of it. I'm tired
Yeah.
of being told what to do, when to do it, and how much I'm worth. So there
Yeah.
has to be another way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that. So, talk to me a little bit about there's another resource we're gonna link down in the show notes about our pantries. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Oh boy. Well, since I was young, I honestly used my babysitting money, my bean picking money. I would buy my own good food, fruits and vegetables, things like that, because my mom was shopping for six kids. We were middle class, and she'd buy the overstocked boxes of crap.
Yeah.
And now we know today it is. But I learned at a young age because I was in the gym. I was training elite gymnastics. So it was
Mhm.
shoved down my throat that you don't eat the sugars and you don't eat the stuff with dyes. And so
Wow.
I learned that very young. But thank goodness it's becoming more aware. The awareness of it is out there today. But it's
Yeah.
just now a matter of introducing people to how they can change the box food mentality and start
Yes.
eating clean, because your body will absolutely feel the difference and you'll see the difference.
Yeah.
So it's really getting into the cupboards, looking at what you shop for. I tell women, when you're shopping in a store, obviously a natural store, or one that is a farm fed, or farmers markets are the best. But if you're shopping
Yeah.
in a brick and mortar box store, avoid the center of the store, because that's where all
Yeah.
those aisles are, stacked to the ceiling with sugary crap that the kids can see, they identify with,
Mhm.
and they start screaming until you buy it. So
That's
shop the
right.
outer edges of the store.
Yeah.
And that's where the fruits and vegetables, the meats, the eggs, the, dairies are. And unfortunately, in the United States, I can't say that our dairy's clean. It's not. Our meats are not, you know, they're hormone ingested. There's crappy products in the United States. And
Yeah.
actually, our government has allowed over 3,000 chemicals to be added to our food supply, where
Wow.
Europeans 300.
Yeah. Wow.
So minimum a
I'm not
thousand.
surprised by that.
Yeah. And so you really have to understand, you know, is the food industry trying to make us sick, or is it trying to keep us healthy? It's keeping us sick. So it
Yeah,
feeds
for
into
sure.
the whole pharma, big medical.
Mhm.
Their biggest moneymaker is getting a kid under the age of 10 who is now, pre-diabetic and obese, which has
Yeah.
happened in our culture.
Mhm.
So that's
For
part of my
sure.
mission too, is to not only change the woman's um, nutrition and all that, but she will pay it forward to the family
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
generations.
All while having an income that's leveraged that will help provide for her and
Yes,
her family for a long time.
yes. It's about a lot of people doing a little bit, and you earn an override of 10 people putting 10 hours a day in versus you
Yeah.
putting 100 hours a day in, which is not possible.
It's
So
not possible.
it's all about, you talked about earlier, Robert Kiyosaki, talking
Mhm.
about leveraged versus, linear income.
Yeah. Yeah,
So you've got
absolutely.
to have leverage.
Definitely.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Jeanette, so much for coming on here
Yes.
and sharing with us about your journey and about how other women can start taking that same journey with you. Tell us, we'll
Yeah.
have all the links down in the show notes, but tell us
Mhm.
where people can connect with you the quickest to kind of get into your ecosystem.
JeanetteLowry.com. If you go today, my website's been updated a little bit. So JeanetteLowry.com, just my name.com. And, there's some freebies, there's master classes, there's
Awesome.
the whole pivot program. So, yep.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jeanette,
Good.
for being my guest. And thank you
Amy,
for
it was
being a queen
great.
that leads.
The Queen's Lead podcast is recorded worldwide and produced by the kick-ass media team at the Height Digital home base in Nicaragua. Until our next episode, stay real, Queens, and go lead. Remember to tap that follow and leave your review. For freebies and more real, inspiring content you love, go to amysingleton.net and connect with Amy on her socials at The Real Amy Singleton.
One more thing. This is the legal language, what my lawyer wrote and what I need to read to you. This podcast is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am Amy Singleton, and I'm just your friend. Although I may speak to many on this show, I am not a psychotherapist, a business coach, a doctor, a CPA, a lawyer, or probably anyone who should be giving you professional advice. This podcast is not a substitute for a relationship with your doctor, coach, or any other licensed professional. Got it? Good. Now go be a queen and follow me at The Real Amy Singleton.